Sometimes it's the smallest mistakes that have the biggest consequences, and sometimes it's hard to identify the connection that the mistake has to that consequence. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that I imagine a lot of people have never thought about, and that's how Sauron accidentally contributed to the death of Smaug. As you might know, in 2770 of the Third Age, the dragon known as Smaug the Golden attacked the dwarven kingdom of Erebor and the managed city of Dale that lay beneath it. The dwarves and the Dalemen were caught by surprise and had no answer. Erebor was sacked, Dale was abandoned, and the surviving dwarves became scattered wanderers. Among them were the royal family of Durin's line, Thrain II and Thorin II, who would become known as Oakenshield. Eventually, Thrain and a company of his kinsmen would make a settlement in Dunland, but it was a poor life compared to the splendour of the Lonely Mountain. After 20 years, the elderly Thrain would make his way to Moria with only a single servant, and there he was killed by Azog. This led to a 6-year-long War of the Dwarves and Orcs, which almost annihilated the Orcs, but further reduced the strength of Durin's folk. Afterwards, Thrain II, now king, would remove himself to the Blue Mountains, where the dwarves would moderately prosper. However, the allure of returning to the Lonely Mountain would not go away. In 2841, this became too much for Thrain to handle. Before Thrain had left for Moria, he had left behind a number of important items. First and foremost was the Ring of Thrain, the ring of power that belonged to Durin's folk. But Thrain had also left behind a map and a key, which would allow someone to enter the Lonely Mountain by its secret entrance. Without a real plan, Thrain left for the east with a small group of companions, including Balin and Dwalin. But the expedition was a disaster from the start. For 4 years, progress was incredibly slow due to being constantly harassed by the agents of Sauron. Finally, whilst camped under the eaves of Mirkwood, Thrain vanished, and none of his companions could find him. But Thrain's fate isn't a mystery. In 2850, Gandalf entered Dol Guldur, and it was during this mission that he finally was able to confirm that the Necromancer was in fact Sauron. But while infiltrating the dungeons of Dol Guldur, Gandalf also came across a dwarf, who was so broken that he couldn't even remember his own name. Before this dwarf died, he gave Gandalf a map and a key, saying it was for his son. At the time, Gandalf had no idea this was Thrain, and at the time, Sauron and his servants had no idea of the importance of the map and the key. They were only interested in the Ring of Thrain, which they took from him, but their oversight in not relieving him of his other possessions would prove disastrous. Now we fast forward around 90 years. At this point in time, Gandalf is incredibly concerned about the state of affairs in the north of Middle-earth. He knows Sauron is back, and he knows it's only a matter of time before he declares himself openly. Because of this, he's also concerned about Smaug. In the past, the dwarves and the men of Dale posed a considerable barrier to any enemies in the northern lands, but now they were gone, and the only real obstacle was the Iron Hills. Gandalf was genuinely concerned with the possibility of Sauron sending forces to reclaim the old land of Angmar, and he was also concerned that Smaug and Sauron might fashion an alliance of sorts. And if all that wasn't bad enough, Saruman was also actively thwarting Gandalf's plans at this point. So it worked out rather well that Gandalf met Thorin Oakenshield by chance in early 2941. Both wanted Smaug gone, but Thorin wanted to destroy Smaug with an army, something Gandalf saw no hope in. For that reason, Gandalf went to his would-be burglar, Bilbo Baggins, to see how the years had changed his favourite hobbit. It was only then that Gandalf realised that the map and key he carried were from Thrain. His possession of these items were instrumental in convincing Thorin to use stealth rather than arms, and to take the hobbit with him. Alright, so you might be wondering at this point, okay, but how did Sauron accidentally help kill Smaug? To explain that, I need to recount some of the events that occurred when Thorin's company actually reached the Lonely Mountain. So, using the map and key, Thorin's company managed to find the secret entrance to Erebor, and this secret entrance proves to be invaluable. Firstly, it allows Bilbo to easily get to Smaug on 2 occasions, and on the second occasion, when he's actually speaking to Smaug, the tunnel that leads back to the secret entrance is too small for Smaug to use, so Bilbo is able to escape, armed with knowledge of Smaug's weakness on his chest. Once back at the secret entrance, Bilbo explains everything, and there's a thrush nearby that is listening, the bird that is, and not the infection. This is also important. Shortly afterwards, the secret entrance once again proves to be a saviour. An enraged Smaug figures out where the dwarves are hiding, but the dwarves take refuge inside the mountain this time, shutting the door behind them, and Smaug cannot get to them. Even more enraged, Smaug decides that if he can't get the dwarves for the moment, he's going to take revenge on the Lake Men of Esgaroth, as he knows Thorin's company has passed through there thanks to Bilbo letting slip the term Barrel Rider. And although Smaug would destroy Lake Town, it's also where he would meet his end, slain by Bard the Bowman with his black arrow. But Bard would not have known about Smaug's weak point if the thrush from the Lonely Mountain had not arrived and told him at that very moment, that same thrush that listened to Bilbo's tale, Bilbo who had only escaped Smaug's wrath due to the existence of that secret entrance, and that secret entrance was only usable because Thorin had the map and key. Which leads us all the way back to Thrain in that dungeon in Dol Guldur. Thrain was captured for his Ring of Power, but for some baffling reason, nothing else was taken from him. He managed to hold on to that map and key long enough for Gandalf to take it from him when he arrived. If Thrain had been relieved of all of his possessions, then the quest for Erebor probably would have been doomed from the start. There would have been no way to use the secret entrance, no way to stealthily enter and leave the mountain. In fact, the mission probably wouldn't have been stealthy at all. Gandalf only managed to convince Thorin with the map and key. Without it, Thorin may have marched what remaining strength Durin's folk had left to be withered by dragon flame outside the mountain. And if the quest for Erebor was not a stealth mission, then there would have been no reason for Bilbo to be a part of it. And that means that Bilbo would not have found his way into Gollum's cave, and that means he would not have found the One Ring. If the One Ring had remained with Gollum in that cave, then obviously the history of Middle-earth would have played out very differently. So letting Thrain keep the map and key might have seemed like a small oversight at the time, but it ultimately proved disastrous for Sauron. If Smaug could have been an ally, that opportunity passed because Smaug was soon dead. And if Sauron truly wished to reclaim Angmar and open up a new front beyond the Misty Mountains, that opportunity passed too because Durin's folk reclaimed Erebor and the Northmen in the area reclaimed Dale, once again providing a strong bulwark against Sauron in the Northern lands. And, on top of all of that, in an indirect way, Sauron's small oversight ended up contributing to his own destruction. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it or at least found it interesting. When it comes to Tolkien's work, The Hobbit is often overlooked because it doesn't have the same tone and there's a lot of inconsistencies, but there's no denying that the events within were incredibly important, so it's good to highlight them from time to time. Cheers, farewell, and remember, maybe Sauron wasn't lazy, and Thrain was actually just using his prison pocket. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that one.